This one is Ask the Expert. Now I know that we've asked for questions in advance. We didn't get any. So I'm going to do it myself, so you guys can't ask nothing the rest of the time. But we'll still do it, give it a shot. But anyhow, I've got a few frequently asked questions that support gets. And I know that throughout the presentation so far, I've kind of thrown out a couple tidbits, and so we'll talk about those again as well for those that have missed some of my conversations. So, a couple things on my agenda. One is that, how do I submit enhancement requests? Frequently asked questions and open questions and answers. Now we talked about how to set a request for submit a request. And I know that I gave this phone number out earlier today, but this is the contact Parasoft Accounting Support. They are available to take live calls, I think, from 8 to 7 Eastern Time. Not Central Time, so you got to back it up an hour or whatever you do. You're an hour behind, right? Right. So only until 6 for y'all. But they're there to answer calls. But we talked about this, if you do a request through email, the best thing to do, again, is know what your ID is for your parish and who you are, and give it a good explanation of what you're looking for. Because our ticketing system, if you've noticed, if you ever put in an email ticket, is an answer bot. It'll read what you sent as a request, and it'll create an answer for you automatically. If it's a not very well worded question or kind of nebulous, it's going to throw out what it thinks you said. And it's not that smart. So try to give it more, or because it probably will throw something at you and go, I didn't ask that. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So when you do an email, do that. But they are tracked, all requests are tracked. You should have access to what's called Zendesk. Support user, have you guys seen it? Whoever does support in your church, okay? It's really quite neat. But this is the number to call. Again, for you it's...
How do we get all of these slides that you're showing?
We have to talk to Scott. I think, Christina, is there on our training site or on the site that we logged in under? Do they have access to the documents there? Do you know? And she'll get you all the documents. We'll probably talk to Scott and just try to figure out, because it sounds like everybody's asked that question, and I think if he didn't pull them down, we'll have to get them to you. Okay? All right, so one of the frequently asked questions. What is the best format for downloading reports into Excel to avoid the strange formatting issues? You know, when you do that export, you say Excel, and you get all those goofy things, right? You click on it, and you can't do anything with it. Well, remember this morning, you guys were in my class, I showed there's an export feature now for statement of financial position, statement of activity, and a number of other reports. Let's see here, trial balance, vendors report, vendor audit report, the basic list, let's see here, account list, transactions, bill list, check register, credit card charges, deposit register, journal entries. There's a lot of reports that have the Excel, and I'll show that to you. But you can export the report as opposed to hitting the icon when you bring the report up. I'll show you. I'll show you what I'm talking about. But it's a brand new update. It just came out in the last couple months, the export feature. And then another one is, how can I speed up the time when going from screen to screen for processing reports? How long have you all been on the system? For a long time? If you have been for a long time, not necessarily you personally, but the church itself, we find that churches would have a ton of vendors. It takes a while to do a bill because you go up look, because every time you open a bill thing or a journal entry, anything that's got a vendor, it's going to load the entire vendor list that you have. So there's a process in ledgers and payables that allows you to deactivate a number of these old vendors. You put in a date. So for instance, you can put in a date, I haven't used this vendor, like inactivate vendors that I haven't used since 2020, let's say. So you have anything older than 2020. If you've never used them or haven't used them since then, it'll deactivate those vendors. And so it'll reduce the number of vendors you have. Because a lot of times you'll get like a school teacher or a religious ed person will buy ink pens or whatever, paper or something, some sort of supply, right? And you have to pay them back. You put them as create a vendor. They may have done this 5 years ago, and they have never done anything since then. So you have all these old vendors out there, so you can get rid of them.
And how do you do that?
I'll show you. But there's a way. So write this down, though. Process vendors. Okay. Another thing, too. What was I going to say? I don't know. I hate being old. Anyhow, so I forgot what I was going to say. Well, I'll show you, though. Another thing, too, you can always check. You ever check, there's a status you can check to see how fast how the processing is working on Parasoft? You can actually go online to this URL, this website, and it'll show you the status of how the processing is working. Now, these numbers don't mean a whole lot, but the main thing is that you want to, anything below a second is really fast, and that's a 1 second right here, or 1/1000th of a second. So the response times are really fast. Okay, browser load speed and all that. It's just showing here if there's a problem. It'll actually tell you there's a problem with the system too. Going to this URL. So if you're like you hit enter in accounting and it just sits there and clocks spin, not sure why, and you know that your internet's not down at home at where you're working, you can go in and check to see, and it'll tell you if it's down or not. Okay. And what they also call support, and it'll tell you it's down. But usually it's not that bad. All right, and this is what I was just talking about. Is there a report that can run to see which vendors were used last? Okay, so under Process tab, Other Process, there's a button called Bulk and Activate Vendors with the report. It'll show you what was last used, and I'll show you how it works. But it also will help speed things up. Okay? All right, here's another one we get questions about budgeting. Remember the budgeting this year and last year, a bit confusing. The budget, because you have current year budget, next year budget, and next year plus one budget. So remember, depending on where you are in your accounting fiscal year, are you all fiscal or calendar here? Fiscal. So when do you start your budgeting process? January-ish? You start looking at it, start running reports. Okay. And we'll talk about budgeting in the next session, but just trying to get an idea. The thing is that what happens is that if you start loading in your budget, let's say you're going to be working in next year's budget if you're doing in January of the current fiscal year, right? So you always want to work on next year's budget. Okay? And that gets confusing sometimes because depending on where you are when you're in your budgeting process as well as where you are in your calendar on where your organization's fiscal year is at. So like for instance, you're July 1 to June 30. So let's say July 2nd, you want to finish your budget. Now you're working in, and you're actually in July of fiscal year 2022, let's say. Now you're working in the current year budget. not next year's budget, because next year's budget will take you into July of '23. So these kind of, so when you get close to that,
Date is that you're working.
yes,
It is.
yep, okay.
Is there a way, though, that that could be an add-on? Because I live and breathe Pearsoft every day. Now tomorrow I'm going to meet with a bunch of people who look at it once a month.
Okay,
We're starting our budget process now. So when they see this year and next year, their this year and next year is totally different. We had this finance discussion.
got it, yes, I know.
If that's where that wasn't my question, but I wonder if that's where it's driven for those people who don't live and breathe this every day.
It is, okay. And we'll go through budgeting in the next session, but yeah, it can get confusing for people. So, is this the current year or the next year, or is it year plus one? I can't keep
You
track.
know what I do? I want to run one report, and then I handwrite
I have
above
read it
them
too.
the years, and then I make a copy of that, so everybody on the council could see.
That's what I have to
I mean,
but-
I know that's not a professional thing, but I just write it up.
Okay, now, you did see this morning on my reports, you can actually annotate that on the reports. You don't have to handwrite it. You can actually print it with that information on it.
Oh, really? I missed that session.
So, oh, see, you learned something today. But yeah, we'll get into more of the budget next thing, but the idea is that it's really confusing if you're not, depending on where you are in your current fiscal year. You have multiple bank accounts. I talked about this earlier too, where you have a list of alphabetical order. You have banks. You may have multiple bank accounts that you use. And when you pull up a bill, it's going to bring it up alphabetically for you. You have Bank of America, then you have, Comerica, whatever you got, okay? You can set that default to the right bank account you want under the options. Again, options tab, user options, and you can set those in there, okay? And you can pull up, and it's for you only user, not for me. So I can have it set differently when I log in opposed to how you log in. So you can have those user options. So look at those user options. It's very good to be able to set it up the way you want to see it. Because you can also, in user options, you can tell it, how do I look up accounts when I do bills? By account number, by shortcut, or you can also look it up by description. So, some people are really good. They know what account they're looking for. They don't know the numbers, but they know a description. I'm looking for a wage report. I'm looking for a wage thing. So you put in wages, and it'll bring up all your wages, opposed to E-5- blah, 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 that kind of stuff, right? So if you're not really good with your shortcut codes or your account codes, do it by description of the account.
Sometimes where I screw up is like, I'll have repair and maintenance. Well, I have repair and maintenance for the cemetery, for the church,
Yep.
and for the altar society, and I might put it in the wrong
Yep.
one, and then that just makes a journal entry later.
Yes.
Correct that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's not watching those numbers at the beginning.
Yeah, you have to be careful. You do. So, but you can make your depending on the shortcuts, you can make it a little bit easier to maybe figure out, too.
Could you possibly write, like, on the beginning of repair and maintenance, something like, I'll put initials or
That's set up by the diocese.
Oh, yeah.
You can.
the, yeah.
But you just need to look at it starts with a 2, a 6, an 8 to 1, whatever it starts with is what account it goes with.
Right, yeah. Yeah, because, the diocese does, and you can't override the descriptions, and you put it at the, yeah.
Hey,
Right,
yeah, otherwise.
okay. But yeah, so yeah, well, I would, but if you can do it by description, it might be easier. I don't know.
Yeah, I
You go-
would go by description.
Check that out. I had a client that the users were used to using the description, how they find their accounts. Because they, numbers were like, whatever that is. They don't care, right? So you can set up by description, which I like too, kind of think of it. And then here's what's new. Another thing too, this is not on your slides that if you ever do download them, was vendor ACH. I talked about this again this morning as well. It allows you to pay your vendors through ACH or electronic handling, processing through your bank. So you can set that up like if you're doing payroll, ACH, it's the same process, okay? It might be a different bank, but you might have to set that up differently. But other than that, it'd be the same, same process. And you can pay your vendors either by check or both. You can do an ACH or by check still. It's your option. It creates a standard file format in Atcha file. You can pre-note. There's a pre-note capability too with the process. So you may have your bank may require a pre-noting before you actually do a vendor ACH. And so we have that process. And you can also rerun the ACH file as well. So it's just like a check run, I can rerun the ACH file. Okay. All right. So let's get out of this. I'm going to go into the system now. Yes.
Parishioners give to the parish through PariSoft by using ACH.
Well, we have the online giving.
Right, online giving is always a fee which the parish would lose a little bit of money
Right.
each time. Like if they give $500 a time, you lose what?
0.3, yeah, something like that, 3% plus, yeah.
And so, but ACH, I've been able to do through Catholic Relief Services, give them donation every month out of my checking account.
Yes.
Without electronic withdrawal. And so they don't get charged anything, they don't lose anything.
Yeah. You
So
can,
Can parishioners set that up so we don't lose anything?
yeah, so what we'd do is that the bank would get the bank could do the draw from the parishioner's account. They'd have to give you that file though, and you import that deposit. There's an import deposit process. There's a format we need to do that. But yes, you can do that. Okay? We have clients that are doing that where the bank does the ACHs, they do their thing. They do the draw, but they have to give you the file in order to import it, or they just tell you, and you manually input it, whatever, but that's how you would have to do it. But there is a file import process, and it doesn't use that standard, doesn't use the ACH inbound like that. It's a totally different format. I can show you that. But we have clients that actually, they do draws from their clients, or their donors. But I know, right now though, just so you know, our online giving, I know they're giving quite a discount for that right now. I think they're zero processing or some sort of, there was an email that went out to all our clients.
For how long, a month?
Well, you know, for $9.99 you get a free Ginsu I can throw at you too. I don't know. I don't. That's a good question. There's an email that went out. I have to look at that. I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. I can find out. I read the email. I don't remember. That's right. I think it might be. All right. Let's go here. Let's go here. All right. So, for the user, you have user option. I went to setup. In user options, this is where you can define the account format, how I want to find it. Okay. If you're using projects, you can look up how about projects. And then you have your default accounts. Okay. So your bank accounts. You see I have a bunch of bank accounts here. And then same for payroll as well. Okay.
It's actually an actual bank account, Deacon checking account.
Well, this is a test system. That's right. That's the way the deacons get their own checking account in our system. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Really. See, that's how we get you. That's how we get the deacons to get involved. That's right. Yeah. Let's go to what else I wanted to talk about here. Other processes. Here's another in processes. Other processes. This is where you inactivate your vendors. So I can look at a report of all my vendors that have not had any activity since 2018. I can run the report, or I can submit it. Recommend that you run the report first, so you know what you're going to inactivate. Okay? So I run the report, I just click on that. Let it finish. And then these particular vendors, I have a ton of them. I got 11 pages of vendors that I can inactivate.
So if you happen to need to use one of them again, you have to reactivate them?
Well, you can't, yes. So you go back to vendors, right? You go to vendors, you do find vendor, and then, of course, you got to go all the way down to the bottom. Yeah, you got to show, yeah, it's on the bottom. Oops. Then you got to show inactive vendors, and they'll show them. Okay. So you'll see them again. So you can always get back to them. They never go away. Remember, in Parasol, we don't get rid of anything. We just kind of hide it from you so you don't use it again.
If you typed in new vendor, it wouldn't,
You would say it's already existing vendor.
then you'd have to go into there and find it.
Right.
How did you get into this to begin with? You went to,
Okay, so to inactivate your vendors, I went to process, other processes, and then inactivate vendors. You can also merge vendors. You ever do that? Merge a vendor, so you have duplicate vendors. So you can merge them and bring all the detail together with them. Do you use spoiled checks? You ever spoil a check? Okay, that works well. Okay.
So you said if you try to add a vendor, it'll say already existed.
If it was there, yes.
So why would there be more than one vendor of the same name?
Well, there shouldn't be. What I'm saying is that if we inactivated those guys, and you didn't know you forgot, this is 2 years later down the road, and somebody brings you a bill.
My question is to merge vendors, then why would we merge them?
Well, because you can have them spelled differently.
Oh, yes.
The same check name maybe, but a different vendor, spelling, because it wouldn't go in because it was already there. So, I'll create another vendor because, I'll put in a U opposed to a I or something. I don't know, something different.
I know some of ours are spelled wrong, that they were like that before I started.
Of course.
Oh, but of course.
So how I can go in and change that, because I have tried.
You can go into your vendors, and you find your vendor, change the vendor name. See, the vendor name has to be unique. You can have the same check name, so you may have, the diocese has, maybe you pay the diocese, for insurance, you may pay them differently for your assessment. And it goes to a different office, so it's a different vendor, but it's the same, you still put it the same check. It still goes to the Diocese of Fargo, right? But it just says, so you can have, the diocese assessment, but it still goes, to print the check would be the diocese. You know what I'm saying? So that's what that's for. So it keeps it, this has to be unique.
So that's where I would change it right there then.
If it's spelled, well, it depends on what is spelled incorrectly. It's on the check or when you look them up.
I read the check.
Okay, pardon me?
I write my check.
Oh, you handwrite your checks?
Yeah.
Okay,
So, I just do that normally.
okay.
Spell it right, but it doesn't.
Where is she? She's not here. All right, there was one question I got earlier regarding how do I add a vendor without having to, I'm in a bill. How do I add a vendor while I'm adding a bill, a new vendor? Because somebody asked me that earlier. You can just go in here in your bill. I can click on add new vendor, and I can add them right here. I don't have to get out my vendor file, add a vendor, and come back in. I can do it right here. Okay?
Where did you do that?
It's right under, see where it says vendor? You got vendor right here, add vendor. Okay? And you can add the vendor here. And all you need is the vendor name and check name are required. Everything else is not. So you can do this to get the check out, get as much information you can, and then later on, update it. Okay? This is really good for like those reimbursement checks and stuff like that. Instead of going through the whole rigmarole of adding a vendor, you just want to get a check out to, Mary Sue because she bought pencils for the religious ed group. You give her $10, whatever. So, something like that. And while I'm here, do you guys do 1099s? Okay. Do you know you can uncheck and check 1099 stuff there? So when you do have a 1099 vendor and you're just giving them a reimbursement for a supply, you uncheck the 1099? Okay.
How about checking all your vendors and the 1099s? Now, do you want to proof what bills you've got out there to make sure you've got all of those checked?
We can give you what you paid them under 1099s and who they are when you have a 1099 vendor. You may not have all the, you'd have to do two things. You get your 1099, there's another report. Let's go over here.
No, what I'm saying is, if you get bills in the system
Mhm.
already,
Yep.
some of them shouldn't be 1099s, should have been marked 1099s, and you want to
Well, okay, so if they're a 10,
report that shows.
right. Well, if it's a 1099 vendor, all bills will default to 1099 unless you uncheck it. So it's the other way around.
And then you can uncheck them.
Yes. Right. Okay. So if you have a bill that shows 1099, it shouldn't be. You find that bill and you uncheck that line item. Okay. These would be checked. You'd uncheck it. Okay. Okay. Another thing. Let's go back to vendors. Is this here? Well, let me change. Let me go over here for a minute. Church. I think it's in here. Vendor. What I'm going to show you next is, I think this is here. That's all right. Well, we can create one. All right. So if you want to do a direct deposit now for a vendor, you have the vendor, and you can go direct deposit, and you can say ACH. Once you ACH it, it'll ask you for the account number and the routing number, and the account type. Okay. And you can still put a percentage if you want, or a dollar amount. So basically, it'll distribute it accordingly. And then if you do a pre-note, you can put the pre-note here. So you would know that you pre-noted this vendor, so this vendor can now do 1099, or excuse me, ACH processing. So you can actually pay your vendors online. So today, you're going into a bill. Just go back to bills for a second, because you see you do yours manually. So you're going in here and you're doing assign a check number, right? So if you're doing an ACH vendor, so if you're paying a vendor online today, okay, you're going in, assigning a check number, and you're going ACH, blah, 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 right? Well, with the vendor ACH, you can actually do them automatically. You can do them just like you would a print check, but using the ACH, you don't have to go and manually set this up. As when you pay it, you put the bill in like you normally do, and you pay it, but this time it assigns the ACH number. So you avoid some of that. Okay. And another person I talked to earlier today, she had a problem with, was it you? It was you. I'm looking at, no, lady in the middle, right there. You had an issue with check numbers being out of sequence, right? Okay. So what you go here, you go into accounts, and you find your bank account that you write your checks under. And then you put in here a check number ceiling. So what it's going to do, because remember, if you put in, like you did an ACH and you put in a date and then ACH at the end, what will happen is that that number will automatically increment your next check number, right? So you go to this check ceiling, because you keep resetting your checks every time you print your checks, so it knows your last check number you did, but because the check ceiling isn't set, you set it to whatever the length of your, so what's the length of your check numbers on your checking account? Is it a 4-digit number, 5-digit number? Something like that. So typically you go 5 nines, for instance. It'll reset the check number, then all of a sudden now your checks number will be back in sequence again. You won't have to go in and every time you bring up accounts payable and print a check, you won't have to go and reset that check number.
So how did you get to that?
Well, you got to watch the tape. No, I got to accounts. Let's go back here. I went to accounts. Okay. I went find account. And then I found my list of my accounts. I just found my checking account, whatever checking account it was. I went go. And I went to here. Check number ceiling, and I submit it.
Because mine are doing that too, because I had a long credit card number.
Yep, and it happens to everybody.
Every time.
Yep, all of a sudden your check number is this long, and I got to reset it. So every time I put in that 4-digit or 5-digit number, and it works great for that check run, but then you come back in the next time, it's all over again, right?
Right.
Right. So go in here, do that. That'll fix that. Okay?
Okay, I got a question.
Yes.
I have got 2 checks that I submitted to print. And before I printed them, I realized they aren't right.
Okay.
So how do I get those onto there so that they're not always on?
All right. So are they? Okay. Did you? So when you say they're not right, what do you mean by they're not right? They're just plain old doggone, just not.
Right.
I mean.
Or it not divided amongst the 3 churches like I normally do?
Okay.
Okay.
Did you put a new check in there then to fix it?
I put a new check in there.
I mean, did you put a new bill in? I should say. And then okay. So this bill is not even good, right?
No, it's not even good. I want to just get it out of that.
Okay, so every time you get into your check process, it says you got a check that should be reprinted. So I would do 2 of them, okay? So you can void that check. I would void those 2 checks.
Do I print them?
You don't have to, just void them.
Okay, how do I do that?
You go into checks, and then you find your check. Whatever check, just show all here. You find your check, click it. Then, if you want, if this system's been cleared, so you can't void it once it's cleared. Okay. So let's go back to checks. Let's see here.
You mean a check that, so you never printed it, it's still a bill. It's
Right.
still a bill.
Still a bill. If it's still a bill, you might be able to delete that bill.
Okay,
You might have the chance to delete it. Depending whatever. So but it's going to have a check number attached to it though, because you tried. Well, it will because it will.
go that far. I went all the way to putting it in the list for bills paid. But
So it's
I realized before I decided to print the check was wrong,
okay.
so then I re-entered them and paid them that way.
Okay. Find the bill that's.
Created the check. I mean, it actually created the check right there.
Right,
But you just didn't print it.
See, so it's considered. It's considered it was paid. Even it's considered it was print. Yeah. Right.
if you void it, it won't let you use the same check number though.
No, you can't. You can spoil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah, that's.
Because, yeah, I've done that where once I'm looking at the check, it creates the check, I go, oh, that should not be. And then I can say, yeah, print, and then I void them all and go back to.
Do it.
You actually print them.
I don't even print them, I just say print them, it pops up the little window, I exit out,
So you
and
didn't print any, whatever.
I didn't print anything.
But this is good though. See, you talk amongst yourselves too. And you can ask your other resources internally within the diocese. You guys can help each other out. And this is what's really we try to promote when we're in these kind of sessions too. Because you may not have seen each other for a couple years, or may never met each other for that matter. But now you have a face, you got a name. It's good to say, hey, what do you do with this? The diocese will love you guys every once in a while to fix it yourself, opposed to calling them, I'm sure. I didn't say that. They did, But I'm just saying it would be, but think about it. You have resources here. You all have used it. You probably used it more than I have. Okay? You're living it. I don't live this every day like you all do. So, I know how to get around the system, but you guys have those real life situations that things do happen and stuff happens, you got to figure out how to fix it. And it's very important. Sometimes there's things, I don't know, Okay. One more thing I'm going to show you here on reports. And remember I showed you is in the statements. So you have, when you run a report, you can export the data now. Okay? That's new. Because remember before, you did a print preview, right? And then you got this wonderful thing. I'm going to put it to XLXS, right? And you got that report, you ran it, and it said, okay. And then you saved it, or you export it and show a new window. I did that. It brings it up. And half times it doesn't work for me. Give it a second. But the idea is that you brings it up, and it brings it up in a real funky area, right? It didn't work. It's not working for me. So let's do this way. I click this one instead. For some reason, this never works for me on my PC. But then you get this report. And you get all that stuff, right? And it just doesn't, it's not, you can't do anything with it. Right, so you get it in this other format. And now you can work with it. This is a flat file. See the difference? It's not formatted, but it gives you everything you need so you can do stuff with it. There's a difference there. Let's see here. What else? Let's see. Credit cards? I don't have an account for this one here. Let me go here. So the diocese sees this stuff at this level. They see all of these churches. If I got anybody in here or not. I don't. I tell you, I'm not sure where I worked. I thought I had a okay. Oh, it's the wrong church. I picked the wrong church. Hang on. Too many churches. Jim. This is your POL right here. So anytime you have your church name, right there is where you would see that number in parentheses. So when you do a support ticket, make sure you mention that. Okay? Yeah, I don't have it. You have to have an account first. So setup. Let's see here. Oh, accounts rather. I gotta have a credit card account. I don't have one set up in here. Let's find the liability. Call it a credit card. And now I go to credit cards, and there's my credit card account, just like any other kind of accounts payable. And you do your vendor, like that. Add a new vendor. So it's basically the same as using a credit card, the same as a bill entry. The only thing is that everything falls under this one account, so then you can do reconcile that one account. Okay? What else? Yes, sir.
You have a report say on, I like my comments to be consistent for what I'm doing for a particular thing. Can you run up a report to show just, or show comments?
Well,
Comments pulled out somehow?
well, they will not just show, so you like, for instance, you're talking about like a bill or something like that, or a journal entry?
Yeah, a bill. Yeah, a bill. Yeah.
Let's see if I have, put there an invoice date. Let's see what I get here. It's not going to filter on comments, though. It's just going to give you the comments if there's a comment on the bill. Locked for schools. There is a comment, but that's all it's going to give you. You can't filter on this. But I think, let's go back here for a second. You export the data. So you get here, export the data, that bill list. Okay. So in that case, you do that. And then you have there's your comments there. So you can do that. Yeah, so at least there you can see what your comments are. And if you're being consistent.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay. Next question.
Yes, sir.
How do you escalate an ER?
Ticket?
A ticket?
All right. The- All right. Give me a for instance. I'll tell you. Give me. What are you trying to get done?
I have a ticket out there that says whether they had to send it. I sent my data in because there's something wrong.
So it's in tier 2 right now.
It's supposed to be in tier 2. They said tier 2. The person said tier 2 will normally get to you in 1 to 2 days. It's been 2 months.
Well, tier 2 is usually pretty good. So if it gets to tier 2, that is escalated. So you want to, okay, so why don't you do this is, if you want to just give me your the ticket number, we can look at that, or I can research it for you. I don't know. It should be looked at, though. Yeah, okay. Okay. But there would be, typically it's something that, if it's at tier 2, they typically do pretty good at getting at it. That you can ask, or you can put in a ticket, I need an update, and that spawns them. Sometimes it sits there, and they forget about it because they get other tickets. And so once you respond, it opens it back up, puts it to their face. So it'd be good to do that too.
Is this the same for parish soft as it is for the county side?
Yes, all the above. Yep, same ticket, same process. But if it's at tier 2, you put in there a comment. I want what's the status? What's the status? And then that'll open up that ticket. If it's sitting there as pending or on hold or something, it opens it back up. Okay? Exciting stuff, isn't it, Father? I know. It's like watching paint dry, ain't it? That's right.
I don't work for that much.
Yeah. I know.
And I have some of that.
There you go. That's right. Just
I'm just trying to support it.
Yeah. I'm here for you. I got your back, right? Well, it's good, though, that you can see that there's things that she can do that maybe you didn't know before.
Right.
Yeah. And now you can ask her and say, can you do this for me? Because I know you can. Right. Now she can't. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right, yeah. That's right. So you don't print checks.
She prints something very neatly.
What?
No, I mean, we don't, how many a month? 20?
Okay. So very minimal amount of checks.
Yeah, I mean, it's not.
You're not still stamping the payroll ones though, right?
No, we get the guys.
I used to do that at the last place I worked. I actually typed them on a typewriter.
Really? Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, well, I would do, sir, I would do, go ahead and escalate that. I would open that ticket up, find it, and then ask what the status is, and that usually gets somebody's attention.
Okay, thanks.
And if it doesn't get their attention, then you call and ask for attention. Okay? Okay? Any other questions? All right, well, thanks.